Hey, welcome back to Monique's Book List. So, today's best of 2018 reads. So, I'm going to kind of break it up into different categories. First is going to be the absolute best reads, the top five. And I did not have a few other categories like like my best thriller, best mystery, other honorable mentions, and then also best classic book that I read. I'm going to start with the lesser categories and then move to the top five books I read this year. So I'm going to start with the best classic, and I'm just going to already tell you, I never remember the writers of these books. That's why I always put a picture in so you can see the name of the author, and also I try to put like a slideshow at the end so you can see the name of the author also. So the best classic book that I read this year was Around the World in 80 Days. Now, to be fair, I did listen to this book more than I read it. And I think I liked it because of the way the audiobook was set up, that the person reading the book was obviously British, and he was kind of quirky and funny, so it helped me enjoy the book more. I did read it partially, and it was enjoyable reading it, but the audiobook definitely add another layer to the book. So in my opinion, if you want to read this book / listen to it, I would say listen to it. And there's a special, because I think there's several versions of audiobooks for this book. So I'll make sure that I list the one that I listened to. So that was my best classic again, Around the World in 80 Days. Best thriller, I have two here, and one of them is in my top five. First is Lethal White, and the book is technically by J.K. Rowling. It is the fourth in the Cormoran Strike series. Now, I understand some people don't like these books because they are very dark, and also, sorry, I'm listening for my daughter. Some of them have the third book had a lot of sexual things in it. This book, really, I don't think there's any warnings. I mean, yeah, it's a thriller, so I liked it. That was one of the best thrillers that I read. The other best one was The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. Now, I know that I believe in Canada and in the UK, it's just called The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. But in the US, it's called The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I actually like this book a lot. The ending surprised every bit of me. Like that, the ending was so... it was surprising. Just to give you a brief synopsis, I'm pretty sure you heard this book all over BookTube. This man wakes up in this body, and I think the name of the person he wakes up in, I can't remember. Bishop. I know his last name was Bishop. And he is trying to figure out who killed Evelyn Hardcastle. And he gets he keeps waking up in bodies, and he only gets to do it 7 times within 24 hours. And if he doesn't solve it, then something happens. So it's pretty cool. I enjoyed it. I'm going to be honest with you. It moves slow. And because it moves slow, I would suggest for you to listen to it. I listened to it on Scribe. It was either Scribe or it was Libby. It was one of those two. So I would suggest, because it moves slow, but listening to it, I was able to put the speed on 1.75 and kind of move through it pretty fast. So I still enjoyed it. It is technically a thriller / sci-fi book. So I enjoyed it. It was surprising. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it. Okay, so best mystery. And one of them is The Hollow Fear, and is also in the series of books, the Lady Sherlock Holmes series. It's the fourth installment of the book. Or is it the third? I lied. It's the third. It's the third book in the installment. I think there's going to be a fourth one. The fourth one will be the final to the series. And I did. This is on my best or my favorite mystery series. So if you want a lot of detail about it, please go watch one of those videos or watch that video. I think it's the first video I did. But basically, we're catching up with Charlotte Holmes and her sister Libby, and there's a murder, and she's gonna solve it. So I enjoyed it. The English Wife is also a really good mystery. I really enjoyed the English Wife is about a gentleman who is American who married a woman who is from England, and he has a past that he's kind of running from when he meets her, and she has a past that she's running from when they meet also. They get married, and you come in right when someone kills her husband, the American, and her sister-in-law, and it looks like suicide. And her sister, like, it's not his sister. It's like, it's not suicide. Someone killed him, and we need to figure out who killed him. She teams up with a journalist to kind of figure out the truth about who killed her brother. And she unravels the mystery of her sister-in-law's past and his past. And it's really good. If you're in the mood for a mystery that takes place at the turn of the century, I would suggest for you to look into it. And it's called The English Wife. And then there's another one called, another honorable mention, which is the erotic stories for Punjabi widows. Now, I enjoyed this book, and it tickled me because the story is about these women who bamboozle this young lady who thinks she's going to be teaching. Actually, they didn't. There's this young Indian lady who wants to be a writer, but she's not able to be a writer. So she's like, if you can't write, teach. So she wants to teach other Indian women how to write. She's thinking that she's going to teach them how to write short stories, how to write, stories in general. And come to find out, most of these women can't even write their name. So the woman who is allowing her to do this at the community center doesn't tell her that these are widows. They don't have any formal education. Most of them can't write. Some of them only have basic reading skills. And they are in this class, and she's like trying to teach them, and they're like, look, if you're going to make us write, we should might as well write about something that's interesting. And so they all decided to write about sex, and it's so funny and cute. But there is a surprise element to this book. I'm not going to spoil it, but it is not, this book is not just about sex. There is sex in this book, so if you don't like sex, you might not want to read this book. However, if you let yourself read this book, what I found interesting in this book that had sex in it, and also talked about women learning how to write. And not only were they learning how to write, but they were, empowering themselves. But they also talked a lot about Indian culture. And I forgot to mention that these women are in London. These Indian women now live in London. And it talked about how they're they're living in London, and how they're still trying to incorporate their culture from India, in London. And it's a really good book. There's also another surprise in the book, and I don't want to ruin it because I was so happy that no one ruined that ruined it for me. And it was so interesting how that part was weaved throughout the story, and it made the story so much better. And I just loved it. So take a look, listen, and I think you'll enjoy it too. Next honorable mention is Grave Mercy. There's 3 books in this series. The first book is Grave Mercy. I think the other 2 books have different names. I'll put pictures of all 3 of them here. But Grave Mercy, and I've noticed this because there's Bobby, who I think her channel is called Bobby Reads a Lot, or Too Much. Bobby Reads Too Much. I'll put her link below. She's a really cool lady. I really enjoy her videos. she's reading a story about nuns, and this story is about nuns who were mercenaries, or yeah, no, maybe not mercenaries, but assassins. That's a better word. These assassins, nuns, um, they're basically you meet this young lady, and she is taken to the nunnery because her father doesn't want her. Her father tried to marry her off, and the dude who wanted to marry her didn't show up to the wedding. So she goes to the nuns to learn how to basically become an assassin, and also the ears for the nuns and for the government. And they basically put her beside the queen, this queen of this fictional country, who's actually trying to defend their honor against France. I love when people mix in fantasy with real things. So this little small country is trying to keep its independence from France, but France is like, really trying to be like, look, you guys are small, we'll take over you and basically absorb you. And they're like, no. Well, the biggest thing is that the queen at the time, I think she's really young, fairly young, I think like 17 or 18. And for the country to stay independent, she has to get married. And every time she's betrothed to someone, they either they go missing or they die. So she's currently betrothed to this young man, and the assassin you meet, I'm gonna call her Sarah. I promise you that's not her name. But Sarah basically is trying to help the queen find out who keeps assassinating her fiancés to prevent her from getting married. It's a really fun ride. The second two books are about two other. Okay, the second book is about a different girl who she's very close to, who Sarah's very close to. And then the third is about another girl. And the third girl, I don't know why I remember her name because she's barely in the first book. Her name is Sophia. I don't know why. But yeah, so it's a really cool series. I liked it. My last honorable mention is a book called Murder at the House of the Happy Rooster. Let me start it over with that. Murder at the House of Rooster Happiness. This is a mystery that takes place in Taiwan. And you meet this young lady who is some type of administrator at a hospital. And her boss calls her in, and he says to her, I need you to meet with this detective, and he's going to ask you to help him with some things, and I need you to do this. So she meets with the detective, and the detective tells her, there's a man who has died at more than one hospital over the last 5 years. So we'll call the man John. I don't want to be disrespectful and not say the names correctly. So I'm going to call him John Smith. He says, John Smith has just recently died at your hospital last night. However, John Smith died at another hospital a year ago. And then a year before that, John Smith died again. So he's like, I need you to help me figure out, one, why these men are dying, and who's killing men with the name of John Smith. And you go on this crazy, wonderful ride of her helping this detective find out who's killing men with the name of John Smith. And you also learn a bit about about the culture in Taiwan or Thailand. I think I said that wrong. Thailand. And it's such a wonderful book. The book I just mentioned is the first book in the series. There's another book in the series, and here's always the rub with listening to books, because the problem with listening to books is the first narrator of this series was amazing. The second narrator is shit, like pure tea shit, and I am having the hardest time listening to the second book. And I might just give up and just read it, which is going to even take me even longer because I don't have a lot of free time to just sit and read books. That's why I listen to a lot of books. When I do have free time to read books, I'm trying to read very short books. This book is very long. So, but I say give it a shot. The first book is really good. I'm going to get through the second book. And I'm pretty sure the second book is amazing. It's just a narrator, which fucking sucks. However, again, it's a really good read. I would suggest it. I would recommend it. Yeah. So let's get to the top 5. My top 5 overall favorite reads of 2018. Let's do it. Too hyped about that. All right. So first and foremost, it is Kiss Quotient. I love that book. I'm pretty sure you have heard a lot about this book. This book basically is about a young lady who is on the autism spectrum, and she wants to learn how to be romantically involved. And she thinks that because she solves things very problematically. Like, if I want to learn how to paint, I go to a painter and he'll train me. So she basically rents, or I don't know if you rent escorts. Like, she gets a male prostitute, and she wants him to help her learn how to love or learn how to be in a relationship so that she can eventually get in a relationship and her, take some of the heat off of her from her mother. Her mother is always asking her when she's dating and stuff like that. So she meets Michael, and Michael and her fall in love, and it's a cute love story. Now, here's the thing. There's sex in this book. It is probably the best part of the book. I'm playing. It is a very good book. The love story is very cute. I like the fact that she's not the only person in his life that is on the autism spectrum. He has a cousin that's on the autism spectrum, so he kind of understands, and it's really cute. I have never reread a book. Like, I read this book in 2 days. And then 4 days later, I read it again because it was so good to me. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed his patience. I enjoyed the honesty about people who are on the autism spectrum. And I appreciate how the book doesn't romanticize it, but it does let you know that even though it's fiction, I still believe it does help you understand a bit that like, someone who has autism is human, and they may not have the skills to tell you how they feel, but it's not from a lack of trying. For some of them, they don't have it to give you. But I liked it a lot. So I would definitely recommend it. Next book, of course, is Lethal White. I did mention it as one of my best thrillers, but I didn't give you too much about it. Again, it is the 4th book in the Cormoran Strike series by J.K. Rowling under her pseudonym or pen, just under her pen. And the Cormoran Strike series is about a detective, a PI, and his assistant, now business partner, who solve murders in England, in London. And this recent book is about him trying to solve the murder of a government official, and it just takes you on a wonderful ride. This young man who is mentally ill visits him and says he knows of a place where they buried a live kid, and he's so every now and then when he gets really when that gentleman doesn't take his medicine, he gets really adamant about the fact that he saw this little kid get murdered. And so Summer and Strike and his business partner, they try to solve that murder, and then wind up, there's a government official that gets murdered also, and he's trying to solve that murder too. So it's really good, really good. I know some people don't enjoy the style of writing because it is J.K. Rowling. I know some people don't like it because it's dark, but I really enjoy this series. It's one of the only series that I've enjoyed that has very dark subject, like very dark. The third book had a lot of sexual assault in it, and it was hard for me to read. I actually had to put it down and read a bunch of other books and then go back to it, but I'm glad I did, and I'm so happy that I read it. If you want to read the whole entire series, the first book is called, I think it's called When the Cuckoo's Calling, but I'll put a picture up of it. But yeah, so I would suggest for you to read all 4 books. I don't know if there's going to be any more, but I hope there are. All right, so moving on to my third favorite or best read of 2018. It is all 3 books in the Lady Sherlock Holmes series. We talked about it in the Best Mystery series. I really enjoyed it. I know I'm an old woman who likes, romance and her cozy murder mysteries, but that's who I am. So I say, go watch that video, go check out those books. Those books are amazing. I think you will like them. And then my 4th pick is the series with the Athena Club, which is, there's 2 books so far in the series. The first book is called The Curious Case of the Alchemist's Daughter, and the second book is called European Travels of Gentle Monstrous Women. And the series basically surrounds these 5 characters who are pulled from the classics. You have Mary Jekyll, Diana Hyde, Francine, Frankenstein, Catherine Monroe, and Beatrice Rappaccini. And these women are either offspring of mad scientists or products of experiences of mad scientists. And in the first book, they kind of try to figure out why there are these experiences, why would these men do this to them, and basically more about them. So you get the backstory about who they are. The second book is about them trying to help a young lady whose father is still practicing mad, science on her. It is a daughter of Van Helsing, and he's turning her into a vampire. And you meet Mia Harper, and you also meet Irene Adler in the second book. I think it's cute how they pull in these women from all these, classic books, and you meet at Irene Adler because she's tied to Sherlock Holmes, and he's also in the book. So it's really cute series. It's not just cute. It's provocative and not provocative. What the hell? I'm tired, and okay. So last on my list is The Wedding Date and the Proposal. These are 2 books by a fairly new author. Her first name is Jasmine. I'm going to put the books here so you'll see her last name. The first book, Wedding Date, is about a young man and a young lady who are trapped in the elevator, and by the time they leave, one of them, I don't remember. I want to say the young lady pretends to be the gentleman's girlfriend at a wedding because he had just broken up with, or his ex was going to be there, and he didn't want to go to the wedding by himself and look like a loser. But he winds up falling for the girl, his fake date to this wedding. And it's a cute story. I enjoyed it. I read it in a day. I literally started reading it at 8 o'clock that morning. And my daughter was a little younger, so I was able to really get into it. So she was a little less mobile, I should say. So yeah, I read the entire book in one day. The second book, they kind of, they're not really, I don't know how to say it. They don't really follow, like they're not a series. They're just in the same world. Carlos is the best friend to the gentleman in the first book. So the second book, The Proposal, you get the story of Carlos and how he meets the girl that he eventually falls in love with. And she's at a ball game with a man who proposes to her, and she doesn't want to get married because they don't really know each other like that. And he gets very upset and basically embarrasses her, and also the entire audience is looking at her as he's proposing to her. And then it gets on TV and all that kind of stuff. So she's kind of embarrassed. So Carlos and his sister help this young lady out of the stadium, and she buys them drinks and calls her friends. Her friends come over and meet them all, and they have a good time, and they kind of create this budding romance between the two of them, and it's so cute. I enjoy both books. One of my favorite booktubers read both books, liked the first book, and DNF'd the second one. And she's not the only one. Like, several people who read the first book and read the second book said they hated it. They were like, I can't believe it's the same author. I don't know why. I don't know what about the second book is so different from the first. I think if they would have read both books as close as I did, maybe they would see that the writing is pretty much the same. I don't know. I get it. I understand that everyone's not going to like every book. I know that everyone's not going to feel the same way I do. But I like both of them. I took them as what they were. Cute little romances that had sex in them that made you all hot and bothered. So I enjoyed them both. But yeah, so that is my top 5 of my best reads of all of 2018. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I know it's kind of lengthy, but I appreciate you sticking in with me. I will be doing the worst of, and I actually filmed that one before I filmed this one, so it may be formatted just a little bit different. I appreciate you being patient with me. I'm getting better. I'm trying to make sure that I say the author's names. The only thing that I hate about saying someone's name is pronouncing people's last names. It's just the hardest thing for me because I don't want to be disrespectful. Like, that's my plight in life, is I don't want my good intentions to be perceived as bad intentions. So I'd rather not and just show you the book. But I'm going to get better at it. Anyway, I really do appreciate you listening to me ramble about all of my favorite books of 2018. If you like me, you'll get to listen to all of my rambling about my favorite books of my least favorite books of 2018.